Hello friends, welcome back for part 23 of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included Spaced Out DLC. And this time, we're going to come up with a new plan of how to get our metal refinery set up. First of all, let's talk about spacing out your base a little bit. I swear I don't mean to say that, but I have said it like a million times during this walkthrough, and if I was more into the gimmick, I would just pretend like I wasn't saying it, but it's never been intentional, so maybe I'll just start saying it intentionally so I stop. Alright, anyway. The spacing on my base here is such that I want my duplicates to be working as close to the center area as possible, particularly where they're sleeping, eating, and using the bathroom. So like this area would ideally be best for them to work in. I need to move my metal refinery because I'm not going to have enough space to keep it right here. So I'm going to probably move it right here because it's still pretty central. My duplicates can still use all the machines that are going to be in here. But I accidentally built some stuff in the way here, not realizing how this was all going to shape itself out. So I need to move these tanks. So I'm just going to start doing that. And we don't need to store as much as we did before, but I may at least still get close. I'll just do 4 tanks of each instead of 5. So just gonna send it down like that. Get that out of the way. So 3 tanks for carbon dioxide. I can count. 4 tanks for each of them. The bottom one's being carbon dioxide, the top one's being chlorine. Just going to kind of keep them in the same arrangement as we had them before. And just going to set it up very simply, something like this. But we do need to vent the existing stuff. So I'm not just going to vent it out into my base. I'm just going to vent it straight back into the same system to be re-filtered. But I do need to disconnect the original tanks first. So this is maybe mundane, like in a mundane amount of detail. But I guess there's going to be someone out there that really wants to know how to do this if they get themselves in this situation. So whoever you are, you're welcome. Alright, going to disconnect those tanks and disconnect this, because this is our line of chlorine that's going to hit up into our kitchen. And then the output, I'm just going to do this. There, just kind of hook them together, whatever. And then this is going to be the line that needs to be sent down in order to get refiltered. So just going to make it sure that it is flowing the correct way, which is back out towards these filters. So just going to hook it up like that. But one thing that's a little bit weird about this is if your tanks are all just sitting like this and they don't have anything that's like forcing the gas through, you're going to have to build something that does that. So this is a little bit awkward, but it does definitely work. Is just putting in an empty bridge that just goes into those lines to kind of force it out. So we're just going to get this all set up, and we're going to get all this stuff moved so that we have space for our new refining area. So not going to be too exciting to watch the gas flow until then. Plus, from the last video, we still need to get this other one going. So my duplicates do have some stuff to do. Just checking in on the other asteroid here. We're still waiting for more water to fill up our cooler entirely, but we're still getting some good performance out of it. So I'm not mad at it at all. Sending a lot of carbon dioxide down here for these slicksters, which they should take care of eventually and produce a little trickle of oil for me. It's really not that much. And then we're going to just keep getting the rest of this swept out and mined out. I really want all of this, but it's going to take my duplicates here quite a while to do that, but not very exciting video content for sure. Alright, so let me get this stuff moved. As soon as we got it all moved over and these tanks are emptied, I'll get them out of the way. And then we'll be able to build our setup for metal refinery. So let me get that done. Okay, got these all emptied out so we can get them out of the way. Just kind of deconstruct all of our pipes here. There, get this back to normal. Alright, let's talk about our other area that we're going to make for metal refinery and some other stuff. So gonna kind of create an area that's a little bit large like this. I think it's gonna be 4 levels if I'm remembering this right. So let's start with the top level. The top level we're definitely gonna want to create with some metal tiles. And I'm running out of those, so I guess I could use something else. Sure, iron. I don't really like using iron for that, so I guess I could just wait and make some more, but our metal refineries are shut down, so we can't do that. Come on. So, we're going to have a few different layers of things that are here. This layer is going to be where all of our items that produce stuff is. So this is going to be like a metal refinery, it'll be a rock crusher, it'll be our glass forge, all that kind of stuff. So we'll start getting that stuff set up really quickly. The second level, though, is going to be filled with water. And like I've been alluding to quite a bit, we're pretty low on water. We could use some of the hot water that we had right here, or we could use it from another source, like something right here, which I'm grabbing. We'll fill this up eventually. I just kind of want to get the idea out here, and then maybe in the next video we can show it all up and working. But at least for right now, we can start building it out, because that's also going to take us a little bit of time. So since this needs to be water also, I'm going to need to create something that's watertight here, but I'll do that in just a second. The third layer is going to be with steam turbines. I'm going to use 4 steam turbines, because this could be kind of a large setup. It's pretty similar to what we had going on the other colony, but this one I just wanted to talk about how many steam turbines you usually need versus what you're going to have running through there. So I usually will try to think about this as like, how many heat sources do I have down in my steam area? And however many that is, I'll need to equal with my turbines. So here, I have 2 heat sources. There's 2 aqua tuners and 2 steam turbines. So for here, we're going to have 4. And we'll talk about those here in just a second. So, since this bottom area we know is going to want to be steam, we've got to set up something like that. If we don't have our steel here, we could start shipping it back. Oh, it looks like I made a bunch more, so we should be good. So, since this area is going to be water, this will be where aqua tuners are. I'll just kind of put them in the middle. I guess it doesn't really matter which way they're rotated. Sure, whatever. So we'll have those two aqua tuners. The other 2 heat sources are going to be, one's going to be our metal refinery, and one's going to be our glass forge. We're going to basically use the excess heat that they produce and let them generate energy for us instead of trying aggressively to cool it down. So, going to be a little bit of a different setup here. Alright, so with these, obviously we need these hooked up to that. We will get our... actually, we can start walling this part off too, because we don't need this much space now that we know where our steam turbines are going to go. So there we go. We can just do something like this. And then now we know how far over the steam turbines are going to go. So this bottom layer can also be put on with some metal tiles also, just to help keep the steam turbines cool. So there we go. All right, I know I'm going way in a roundabout way of talking about this, but it's going to be kind of important to get everything else set up. Let's finally set up our metal refinery. So I'm going to build it like this, wherever it is. There we go. Metal refinery here. The middle, I'm going to put a kiln, which is something that I just had up and I should not have closed. Kiln right here and a rock crusher right here. I like to leave a little bit of space in between them just because our shipping system for this is going to be kind of complicated, but we'll get to that in just a second. I really don't like using iron for all this stuff, so once I produce more of some other types, I'll go back and replace these, like replace these tiles and stuff. It'll be kind of annoying to do so, or I guess, I don't know. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'm just worrying too much about this. Who cares? Alright, so we need those things, and we're also going to need our glass forge. Now, our glass forge is already up here. Our rock crusher and kiln are already up here, so we can go ahead and deconstruct those. Let's move our glass forge down here. And the glass forge, normally, the instinct would be, oh, this is really hot glass. We need to run it through the water. But instead, I would rather run this down and have it fall into our steam, then have it kind of be shipped around and share its heat with the steam so that then we can turn it into energy. Going to be kind of using the heat mechanics to our advantage here. So all of our steam turbines, I typically like to just have them fall down straight down below where they are if there's a lot of them. And I would definitely classify 4 as a lot. Alright, let's see. What else do we need? Oh, we also need our loop for our metal refinery, because one of the things that we were relying on is these really cold liquid from the brine geyser and from the cool slush geyser. I'm just going to call this a brine geyser. Who cares? But now, we're just going to have one source of coolant, and that coolant is just going to be on a loop that's going to run through our steam area. So I'm going to put a liquid reservoir down. I'm like, a water box, that's what it's called. Liquid reservoir down. And this liquid reservoir is going to be filled with our coolant. So it's just going to kind of snake around like this just to help share its heat with everything around it. Maybe something like this. Sure. We'll evaluate it here. And if it is okay to send, we will do so. Let me see. Yeah, if it's okay to send, we'll send it up to our refinery. Once it gets refined, I want it to not share any of its heat until it gets back down into this area. So something like this. So when it is passing through anything else, I definitely just want it to kind of be in insulated pipes, not be sharing its temperature as much as possible. Then we'll just put a liquid shutoff that's going to prevent it. We need to make this out of steel, by the way. Everything in your steam needs to be made out of steel. I don't remember if I said that before, but... and everything that can overheat, that is. So these lead pipes are probably fine. They have a melting point that's pretty high. I don't think our steam is ever going to get that hot. If it does, it'll be a problem, but I don't think it should. If you're worried about that, you could build it with pretty much any other type of material. So, you know, you could use iron. I don't want to use it for tungsten. I'm saving my tungsten for something else, which we'll talk about in the next video. But yeah, so anything that can overheat, you definitely want it made out of steel. I'm going to put a thermosensor on this, and we are going to hook it up to the shutoff to make sure that whatever we're sending back is cool enough so that it won't be messed up by the refinery. The refinery will boil stuff, and it will make a mess if you send it stuff that is already too hot. So we just basically need to make sure that the stuff we're sending is not going to get boiled and turned into something else by the refinery. So yeah, just a quick closed loop here. Anytime it's in the steam, it's in radiant pipe. Anytime it's not in the steam, it's in insulated pipe. So just something simple like that. Now we need a coolant. So let's get our coolant, but if you think about this, let's think about like, oh, do we want polluted water? That is a pretty high vaporization point, but no, that's not going to be good enough because we want something that is hotter than the steam turbines can run at. The steam turbines are going to require, I guess it doesn't really say here, the steam turbines are going to require steam that's 125 degrees Celsius, and that is too hot for polluted water. It's also too hot for brine and pretty much everything else we have here, but what it's not too hot for is something that we want to send to our main colony anyway, which is either oil, which we could send, or I'm just going to send myself petroleum, and petroleum is going to be our coolant for the metal refinery. So we need to send this anyway back to our main colony. So I'm just going to start setting this up and then kind of send it back into our teleporter, which is, you know, what it's for. So just going to get that here. And by saying that I want to send this here anyway, that's where I'm going to be launching all my rockets, so I want to send it through there. And then on our exit teleporter, where we basically receive stuff back from there, which is right here, we can just put a really quick liquid shutoff that's connected to some automation. And we'll either let that flow or not, but I don't want it to have it like sitting in the pipes all the time, because that'll just start exchanging its heat with everything around it slowly. But I'd rather just put a shutoff like right before it. For right now, until we get a fancier method of controlling this, I'm just going to put it on a signal switch, like that. And then the contents we can just kind of run down to our metal refinery, which this is going to be a long journey of pipes. This will definitely be one of those where I'm like, okay, duplicants have too much to do now, so let's just let them do their thing. Let's get it over here. Come on, game. There we go. Gonna run our petroleum all the way down here. We're gonna have to cross a lot of pipes. So let's see, this one's going down, that one's going up, this one's going up, that one's going down. Snip, 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 snip. And then on the other side, once it needs to connect in, just gonna do this, and then we are going to not let it flow through anything yet. So cancel that. There. Okay, so I'm gonna fill this up with petroleum. I'm going to try to not fill this up all the way. So I'm going to hook this up to power, but I'm going to turn it off until it's time to fill this up. And I'll just kind of like turn it on for a little bit. And then basically as soon as it starts touching my tank, I'm going to let all of this drain into the tank but I'm going to shut off the supply. So give my duplicants a little bit, and we'll fill up this tank, and we'll start getting our metal refinery going. But I do need to start filling this up with water, too, so there's even more stuff to do. I also need some coolant here, probably some kind of water or something like that, which we can actually just kind of, like, connect up to the side, too, for the time being. Until we get a better, until we get this more full, then we won't need these tiles, but that'll help kind of cool everything down. Alright, whatever, I'm rambling. Let me give my duplicant some time to get this set up, and then we'll get this tank filled with petroleum. Okay, let's get this petroleum tank filled up. Just going to turn this on for just a second, and I will, I guess, just keep an eye on it manually to make sure that we don't overfill it. It won't be the worst thing in the world if we overfill it, but you do actually need more than I'm remembering here, so... Guess I'll just let this run. Maybe we'll turn this off when it's about halfway, only because a lot of this is going to wind up going into the metal refinery and just sitting there, so... We will need more than is normal for something like this. Let's hook up our power for this really fast. I'm just going to drop a couple of large power transformers, because if you remember, in order to hook up these aquatuners, we definitely need to hook them up with these conductive wire, because otherwise it will not be able to handle it. So I'm just going to go, I guess I'll just go around. I don't know. Sure. That looks okay. Just kind of connect them up like that. There we go. And then same thing with this. Guess I'll just switch back and forth arbitrarily. Why don't we do that? Need to set up our gas pump in here so we can pump out all of the oxygen, or I guess all of the gas that we don't really want. Got our line for water, which is going to start pouring into here to fill this up. Let's start talking about our glass forge in the meantime. The glass forge, like I mentioned, it'll put out glass at a ridiculous temperature, but it's going to put it out as a liquid, which is good for us, because then we can just run a pipe down like this. I'll replace this, or rather I'll switch this over when it's time, because right now it's just going to be water, and I want it to run through all these tiles if I can. Then I'm going to have it drop off somewhere in here. I want to use something that isn't going to melt, so ideally I'll just use some wolframite there so that the molten glass doesn't melt at my vent. Once it comes into here, I'm going to want to ship it out. So we'll just get a auto sweeper, and we're going to get a conveyor loader that's also made of steel, and I'm just going to put it in the corner like that. And then when we get it loaded in there, I want it to exchange its temperature with the steam that's eventually going to be in here. So I'm just going to kind of loop it back and forth like this. And then by this point, hopefully it will be cooled off enough to be shipping it back up into this area to eventually get it cooled. So, well, I guess we could just say we don't need to make sure that it's hopefully. We can just add something to make sure that it's not going to get shipped out unless it's the right temperature. So if you've been keeping up on your research, you should have your conveyor shut off. But it looks like, actually, this is deeper in the tree than I thought. If you can get this conveyor rail thermosensor, this will be one of the first ones that we need the data analysis research for, which is now reminding me I should probably start running some data analysis missions. Let me see how many databanks we have, actually. We have some. I don't know if that's going to be enough. So let's do this. Yeah, we're definitely going to need that for this setup. So I'll just explain it, and then I guess I'll just research it off screen here just to make sure that it works. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a conveyor shutoff right before this. This tile is meant to have the conveyor rail thermosensor on it, just to detect if the glass that I want to ship out is cool enough before we get it out into an area to be cooled off. Because by the time it gets to this, it's going to all be running through some water, and this should cool it off a good amount. I could add another layer here, but I don't know. Guess I'm not that worried. We'll see what temperature it comes out as. I could put another shutoff up here. In fact, I might as well. Why don't we just do two of them? Put another shutoff right here. We don't need to make this one out of steel, though, because it's just going to be sitting in water. So, sure, gold. Then we'll have it connect up into here and be shipped out. So we need our research for that. We need a research station for it, which we haven't done yet. So let's put that down. Virtual planetarium. And then with this, since you're going to get databanks out from space, I'll usually just put a bin down here, which is just to hold databanks. So we'll do that. Let me make sure we have all of our databanks shipped back from the main area too. So hopefully we can, oh, we do have some still. Let me find where this is. Oh, just needs to be sent in here. Industrial ingredient. Databank. This is also one of the good reasons why inspecting these crash satellites is going to help. There's only one here, actually. Also, yeah, I guess this only puts out one. I thought it put out more than that. Also, inspecting any of the buildings here that you would need to demolish just to get stuff out of the way. Here's some more right here, too, but still almost nothing. All right, we'll see if that gets done. I will keep an eye on my research. If not, we're going to have to take another detour to get the right items to be able to research this and be able to finish this build. So I guess give me a second, since I didn't remember that that had been moved deeper into the tree. And we'll make sure we can get this data analysis research by running at this virtual planetarium. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. And if not, then we're going on an adventure to make a rocket to go get some more for us. So I'll be right back. Well, I did forget to turn off the switch to fill up our liquid reservoir, but we should still be okay. So we'll hook all this stuff up and make sure that we can get our coolant to our metal refinery so we can start refining some more metal that we might want during this. And at least we can close that loop, but I don't want to refine too much until all this is up and running. Have water flowing now, and yeah, so I just wanted to mention that I forgot that, but we'll get this hooked up in just a second. Okay, looks like we did have enough databanks to get this research. Now we're just waiting for rad bolts to finish our materials research, but there's still a couple other things we can set up in the meantime. At least for one, we can disconnect our line that's going to be running petroleum down. So, oh, by the way, we now have enough of a reason to send petroleum into our generators. So there we go. Can hook those up. The rest of this we can just get rid of. The rest of this will also get drained in here over time. So let's hook this up. The temperature that I'm going to want the petroleum to reach is somewhere below like 180 before it gets sent back into the metal refinery. And the metal refinery will keep it at about that temperature. It's going to come out very hot, but you want to make sure it doesn't get any warmer than that. Both because that's like the maximum efficiency you can get out of the steam that's in here, but also the petroleum does have a pretty high boiling point, so I guess you don't really need to worry about it that much. So it really is just like the ability to exchange its temperature with the steam being reasonable. So, yeah. Let's get this hooked up to a signal switch. We're almost ready to close this off. I guess we could put in our cables for the thermosensors that are going to go on the rails. We'll get that here in just a second. Let's also set up our tanks that are going to be for cooling stuff. So, if we wait for the game here, get our liquid reservoirs in here. Just drop a couple of them in here. It's going to be basically the exact same setup as we did for our other asteroid when we just had a couple of cooling tanks that are going to be running in and out of the aqua tuners. Again, just behind some shutoffs, just to make sure that there's not, or rather, we're not getting it too cold if that's the case. So, yeah, this one just going to kind of connect over to here. This one just going to connect to like right there. And then just using radiant pipe for all this stuff. Again, just switching it back to insulated pipe once it's going to be inside here, and then just back to radiant. You can kind of just do something like this. It's going to be a big pool of water, and we're mostly going to be using it to cool our glass and kind of keep this area operational and keep our steam turbines cool, so it doesn't need to be overly scientific, I guess. This is just going to run back up here, go back up into the tank. And then the coolant that I'm going to put in here is not going to be ethanol again. I'm just going to use polluted water because that's a lot more accessible and something we can just grab from right here if we need to. Or there's still pools out on the map. There's still this little bit of polluted water that I could use to fill up these two tanks. So I guess I will. That's a pretty nice usage of my last of my naturally occurring polluted water. I'm just going to mention this again just in case you didn't see it. There is a polluted water vent right here, so if you're really struggling for water, I would take it in your run. I'm just not doing so in mine, only so that it's more universal for other people that might not have this. They're not always guaranteed to be there, whereas these two are guaranteed to be there. So I want to run the whole game on something I've seen on every single spaced out map. Okay, we're going to need a little bit of time for our duplicants to finish up the research to get our thermosensors so that we can finish up the rest of the build for our glass, but we're getting really close. At least in the meantime, we have petroleum that's going to be sitting down in our tanks and kind of exchanging back up with the metal refinery, so we could at least start some refinement jobs on that in the meantime. So sure, copper. I don't know, 80 more, why not? And then if this ever does get too hot, we can stop sending it. But be careful, make sure that you have this room vacuumed out and you turn this into steam first. So maybe this isn't a good idea to do this much. But another thing we can do is we don't need to actually put a restriction on the gold amalgam anymore, so we could do that. Because that won't generate nearly as much heat right away. I don't know why I said 18. I'm trying to do math. Let's say 90 gold amalgams. That'll probably keep it pretty low. So yeah, you could at least get that started, and that was kind of the whole point. So yeah, this is only partially running. Let me get my duplicants to fix this up, and then we'll get the glass forge, we'll get this turned into steam, we'll get all this other stuff operational. So yeah, give my duplicants just a little more time. Okay, research is done. Let's finally get this up and get the rest of this closed off. So, gonna add our rail thermosensors on our 2 spots that they need to go at. And this is going to be set to pretty much the same thing as this. If it's ever below 180, I'm okay with that. So that's going to be where our glass goes. Anything that we find, just going to ship it out kind of like that. I'm going to wait until this is all vacuumed out before we start making glass and kind of show the whole thing in action. But notice how our water has been warming up here. I think I can stop sending water, by the way. So we should be fine to close this up, start vacuuming it out. And then we'll kind of jump forward to when we get the glass and everything else running and get some of our coolant running, because I'm going to be running some polluted water into these tanks. So let's do that. Okay, let's fire this thing up now that we have waited long enough to get all this stuff done. So we're just filling up our tank with the last of the water, the last of the polluted water. Actually, I probably want a little bit less than this. 1 second. Let's just cut it off here. Sure. Getting the last of our polluted water filled up here. We're starting to get water flowing inside here so that we can exchange our temperatures with everything that needs to be cooled down. Let's set up our thermosensors. So as long as the polluted water is above, I don't need it to be too high. Let's say above like 15C, that should be fine. Then we'll send it to be cooled. Yeah, so we got that. We have our conveyor rail sensors below 180 before the glass is allowed to get sent out. Out of here, I just said below 35. If it's anywhere below that, I think it's totally fine. It's not going to cause any major heating problems here. I could probably even lower this. Let's say 30, whatever. Looks like we've done all of our refining for the gold, so we might as well just start doing more of the heavy-duty stuff here in just a second. So let's hook up our tanks so that our aqua tuners can get started. There we go. Disconnect that. Deconstruct all the extra pipe that's here. There. And then the rest of this we can just send into our water system to be refined. So that'll be the last of our polluted water here. Just going to be into our water network, and it'll probably just eventually all wind up here. But yeah, so we got that going. Let's get our glass, which I think we should be good. And this should boil into water, or rather steam, in just a bit, but it'll take a little while, so we're not just going to sit here and watch that. But here's our 4th source of heat for this, so sure, 80 molten glass. We do need to remember to reset all of our things that are going to be creating lime, one of which is fossil, by the way, which we haven't talked about. Fossil is over in this biome, and this is one of the things that we can send out. And now that our tanks are basically full of water, so that we have a full setup here, we can just go ahead and wall this off like that. And our material cooler is basically ready, but it's also ready to handle more heavy-duty stuff. So we've just been setting metal ore and lead and that kind of stuff out for the meantime. But I'm going to start sending fossil back so that we have a lot of lime to make steel. So just set up some jobs for iron. I don't know, 40. Steel, if we get that, forever. Copper, sure. Let's say like 25. We also still do need wolframite, so I don't know. But don't want to use all of my... Or, sorry, we need to make tungsten. I don't want to use all of my wolframite, so I don't know. Let's say like another 20. Sure. So this can run, like, a lot more efficiently because we're going to be constantly getting coolant from this on this little loop. It's going to be running more efficiently, actually, than running off of both of these two. Plus, any excess heat that it produces, we can just turn back into energy. So, pretty cool setup here. Here's our glass kind of sitting in here, cooling down, sort of. I guess it'll get a lot better once we have the steam, which is going to be exchanging its temperatures. Actually, look how fast this is rising. This was only at like 58 just a second ago. So, you can see how much heat gets put in here, but that's kind of the idea. That's the whole setup for this. I'm not going to talk too much about the shipping, only because it's pretty complicated and this is getting pretty long. But the idea here is that anything you might want to send down here, like iron ore or anything that you want to turn into lime, you could ship down here, kind of drop it off. I'll talk about this a little bit more when we start making clay or start making ceramic, which will happen pretty soon. So we'll flesh all the rest of the shipping stuff out in just a minute. Okay, next time, I think what we're going to be talking about is finally getting our rocket setups up so that we can start running some rocket missions. So that'll happen next. Lots of stuff to do here before we're able to settle on the next planet, but things are going pretty well. So let me know if you have any questions about anything that we've covered down in the comments. I am definitely looking at them and I will respond. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you here again real soon.